Welcome back to Guided by Faith. This is day 2 of us exploring of who is our community and how are we to reach them with the gospel. We read in Romans 10, verse 15, that beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. And we're not all preachers. And I don't think that everyone has to expect to be a preacher one day to share the gospel. Because each of us in our lives have a sphere of influence, a community around us that enables us to, by relationship, share the good news with our words and with our actions. And so we're actually going to explore who is our community today and how can we reach them. But before we get to how we reach them, we need to know who they are. So there's a word that is used commonly in the New Testament, especially in the book of Acts, but through all the Gospels and the epistles, where it describes a household. And that word is oikos. Oikos meaning household, but the greater use of the word oikos seems to not just mean like immediate family or people that live in the actual home that you lived. And even at that time, it's not a nuclear family back then. There typically would be a larger group of people all living under the same roof, generations and the closer relatives. And so even if you did just describe it as the household, it'd be a larger household than we think about in modern day times. But it's actually greater than that. It seems to be, in a general sense, the word used to describe someone's sphere of influence. And what I mean by sphere of influence, I mean the people surrounding you that you have influence over, or you have the ability to affect. Those are your friends, those are your family, those are the people you go to school with, and the people that you do life with. And all over Scripture, we see this presenting the gospel to people in the sphere of influence to be a really common way or response to somebody receiving the gospel themselves. And so I'm actually going to read through a couple of these. This is an interesting list. And we start with Andrew. So we think Andrew brought his brother Simon Peter to Jesus. We read that in John 1. We see that Philip brought his friend Nathanael to Jesus, John 1:45. Matthew held a banquet for his fellow tax collectors and other friends to meet Jesus. That's Matthew 9:10. Jesus instructed the former demoniac or person possessed by a demon to go home and tell his family what happened. That's in Luke 8:39. Jesus went to Zacchaeus' house and his whole house was saved. That's that word oikos. That's Luke 19:9. The woman from Sychar who met Jesus at the well and went back to their community to tell people in that town about what Jesus said to her. That's John 4:28. After a man born blind, Jesus healed them, and then that newly given sight blind man told his neighbors about others and about the testimony of what Jesus did to him. We read that in John 9:8. In Paul, we see that he baptized a household in 1 Corinthians 1:16. So we see that this use of, it's not normally a personal response, but if someone was affected by Jesus, their whole oikos, their whole community, that household was affected by that experience. And I think it should be for us as well. And so in modern day, for us thinking, I can break up a sphere of influence into really 4 areas. And then tomorrow we're going to even make it simpler and write out on a piece of paper, how do I know who my sphere of influence and the people in it that I should be reaching the gospel? But for right now, we think of 4 areas that you can describe your oikos or your sphere of influence, where there's a primary sphere of people you're very close to. That's like immediate family, your next door neighbor, a close friends from school, people that you're interacting with in social activities. Think of the times that you had in sports or in extracurriculars, those other closer friends that you have that you're just doing life with. That's a primary sphere of influence. Those are people that you're close with, people that you share life commonly with. Then you have a larger sphere of influence that's outside of that, which is the rest of your relatives. So you might be most close with your brother, sister, mom, and dad, but the rest of your relatives, your aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, they're a little bit further, but they're still within your sphere of influence. You might have a next door neighbor that you see every day when you're getting in school or getting in the car to go to school, or walking past their house on the way to the bus stop. But then you have the rest of your neighborhood or your subdivision, the people you see maybe on a walk while you're walking your dog. You have that secondary sphere of influence where you have your close friends that maybe you go to school with or that you share class with, but there's other people that are at the same school. You see them in the hall, you see them in the lunch line, you see them at the bus stop. You're not necessarily super close, but you're closer. And then you have the members of the clubs or the organizations or the extracurriculars that you have that may not be the people you directly sit next to. Maybe they're not the people you always pass the ball to, but you do see them regularly. This is your sphere of influence. This is your oikos. And I would encourage you again to be praying for where in your sphere of influence, who do you know that is far from the Lord? Maybe who's never had an opportunity to hear about the saving grace of Jesus. And so then tomorrow we're going to be exploring who do we share the gospel with in our community, in our sphere of influence. And I'm excited to do so. I'll see you tomorrow.